Okay, so I want you to picture two different futures for yourself. And let's be really honest about the effort involved here. In both of these versions, you are the exact same person.
Right.
You are disciplined, you are diligent, you put away the exact same amount of money every single month for, well, 31 years.
So it's the same input, totally different output. Yeah.
Exactly. So in scenario A, you reach the finish line, you're ready to retire, and you have about $500,000, which, hey, isn't nothing.
No, that's a nice nest egg.
Right. But in scenario B, again, doing the exact same work, writing the exact same checks, you retire with over $25 million.
I mean, that is just a staggering difference. It honestly sounds like a scam or, I don't know, a clerical error on a bank
I
statement.
know it sounds completely fake.
Yeah.
If someone told me that at a dinner party, I'd probably check my wallet. But today's deep dive is actually based on a really fascinating data simulation.
Yeah, from a source called the TQQQ challenge.
Right. And they ran this 31-year experiment, well, a backtest, really running from January 1995 all the way through December 2025.
And we should clarify, this isn't just theoretical fluff. This is a cold, hard look at how 5 different investment vehicles handle a lifetime of market chaos.
Because that period covers a lot of chaos.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking the dot-com bubble, 9/11, the 2008 housing crisis, the pandemic, all of it.
It's basically a showdown, a 5-way battle royale between safety, the standard market, and some high-octane heavy hitters. And our mission for today is to unpack exactly how we get from $500,000 to $25 million.
And more importantly, the psychological toll you have to pay to get there. Because there is always a catch.
There is always a catch.
The toll here isn't monetary, it's visceral, it's highly emotional. But before we get into the drama, and there is a lot of drama, we really need to set the ground rules for this simulation so everyone is on the same page.
Good idea. Let's establish the baseline. The source sets up a classic dollar cost averaging strategy, or DCA.
Which is just a fancy financial way of saying you invest a fixed amount of money at regular intervals.
Yeah.
It's the set it and forget it method.
I always think of it like grocery shopping, honestly.
How so?
Well, say you budget $100 a week for steaks. If steaks are expensive, you maybe buy 2. But if steaks are on a massive discount, you buy 10 and fill the freezer.
Oh, that's good.
You're spending the exact same amount of cash, but the amount of stuff you get changes based on the current price.
That is actually a perfect analogy. So in this simulation, our hypothetical investor is buying $1,000 worth of steaks or, shares every single month, like clockwork.
$1,000 a month. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a significant commitment.
It is.
That's car payment money. For some people, that's mortgage money.
Yeah, it's not pocket change. But for the sake of the data, it provides a very clean baseline, 1995 to 2025, $1,000 a month.
And just to keep it mathematically pure, the source has every single asset start at a baseline of $1. So who exactly are the contenders in this showdown?
Let's meet the lineup. In the safe corner, we have the standard options. First up, we have cash, specifically treasury bills.
T-bills. Basically mattress money, right?
The bedrock of safety, yeah.
Yeah.
In this specific time period, they're earning anywhere between 1% and 5% interest. You sleep very well at night, but you're not exactly lighting the world on fire.
Okay, next up is SPY. This tracks the S&P 500.
The 500 largest U.S. companies. This is the ultimate benchmark.
Yeah.
If you hear someone say they are investing in the market, this is almost always what they mean.
And rounding out the standard crew, we have QQQ. This tracks the NASDAQ Q100.
Right, so unlike the S&P 500, which covers a bit of everything, including banks and oil companies, the NASDAQ Q100 is heavily weighted toward tech. Think Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA. It's got a bit more kick than the S&P.
And our source material makes a really interesting point right off the bat about why we're even looking at stocks instead of just sticking with cash. Because honestly, $500,000 in cash sounds pretty safe to most people.
It feels safe, yes, but it's actually incredibly dangerous over a 30-year horizon. The source argues that stock investment is a must for financial independence.
Piece of inflation.
Exactly. $500,000 in 1995 bought you a literal mansion. $500,000 in 2025 buys you a one-bedroom apartment in a mediocre city. Cash bleeds value. You have to take some risk just to stay steady.
But then, there's risk, and then there's risk, because now we have to introduce the challengers, the ones responsible for those crazy numbers I mentioned in the intro.
Leveraged ETF.
Yeah, the leveraged ETFs. Here is where it gets fascinating, and technically pretty complicated. First, we have QLD. This is a 2x leveraged ETF.
So essentially, it aims to deliver twice the daily performance of the NASDAQ Q100. If the normal Nasdaq goes up 1% today, QLD should go up 2%.
And then the heavyweight champion of volatility, TQQQ.
The 3X leveraged ETF, it aims for triple the daily performance. Market goes up 1%, TQQQ goes up 3. But, and listen to me very closely here, it works both ways. If the market drops 1%, TQQQ drops 3.
So it just amplifies everything, the joy and the pain.
Exactly. It's a magnifying glass on the market's mood swings. And most people don't realize that there is a mathematical penalty for this, which in finance we call volatility decay.
Okay, hold on. Volatility decay? That sounds like a sci-fi disease. What does that actually mean in plain English?
Think about it like this. If you have $100 and you lose 10%, you have $90. To get back to 100, you need to gain about 11%.
Okay, simple math. I'm with you.
But if you're using 3x leverage, that 10% drop immediately becomes a 30% drop. Now you only have $70. To get back to 100 from 70, you don't need 30%. You need a 43% gain just to break even.
Oof. So if the market is just choppy going up and down, you're actually losing money even if the underlying market ends up flat.
Precisely. It's like trying to run up a muddy hill. For every step forward, you slide back 2. That is the inherent danger of TQQQ.
Okay, so we have the players. We have the math. Let's start the clock on the simulation. We are investing our $1,000 a month. 1995, 1996, 1997. Things are going great. The dot-com boom is happening. Everyone feels like a genius.
Well, it's a massive party. Tech is exploding. People are quitting their normal day jobs to day trade from their living rooms.
But then the music stops. We hit the dot-com crash. And I want to fast forward to the first major milestone our source provides, the 10-year mark, December 27th, 2004.
Let's set the scene for you here. You have been disciplined. You have written a check for $1,000 every single month for 10 full years. That is a total principal investment of $120,000 out of your own pocket.
Which is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
So I've got the data here, but walk me through it. If I put that money into the safe option cash, where am I?
You'd be sitting on $138,000. You made a little profit. Not bad. You slept well through the crash.
Okay. And if I was in SPY, the S&P 500?
You're at $166,000. Doing better. That's a really solid return, especially considering the market had just crashed a few years prior.
Okay, not bad at all. I've made some money. Now, give me the bad news. I'm the TQQQ investor. I wanted the triple returns. I've been putting in my $1,000 for a decade. What is my balance?
You might want to sit down for this.
Is it that bad?
After 10 years of investing $120,000, your account value is $70,000.
Wait, what? $70,000.
$70,000.
I've lost $50,000. I've been saving for a decade, and I have almost half of what I put in.
Correct. You have lost nearly half your wealth.
Yeah.
The source explicitly points out that at this stage, the TQQQ investor has only 51% of the value of the cash investor.
That is genuinely sickening. I mean, imagine telling your spouse, hey, honey, I know we've been aggressively saving for 10 years, but half of it is gone. But don't worry, I'm going to keep putting another $1,000 in next month.
You'd be sleeping on the couch. Or calling a divorce lawyer. This is what we call the lost decade. The dot-com crash from 2000 to 2002 just decimated the tech sector. And because TQQQ is 3x leveraged, that volatility decay we talked about, it absolutely ate your portfolio alive.
So why on earth would anyone continue this? It sounds like a completely failed experiment.
Because you're buying stakes.
The freezer analogy.
Exactly. While your account balance looks horrifying on paper, that $1,000 a month is buying massive amounts of shares because the price is so unbelievably low. You are accumulating units.
Okay, so let's say I'm a glutton for punishment. I stick with it, we move forward, but it doesn't get better immediately, does it? Because just when you think you're safe, 2008 happens.
The global financial crisis. And this is the part people often skip over, but we really have to look at it. If you thought the dot-com crash was bad, 2008 was a systematic failure of the entire economy.
So I've been digging myself out of the hole from 2004 to 2007. Things are finally looking up, and then the housing market collapses.
And TQQQ drops, wait for it, probably over 90% from its peak.
90%.
If this is a real fund trading back then, it would have been nearly wiped off the map. Remember, this is a simulation based on the underlying index data.
So now I've been investing for 14 years. It's 2009. I've put in nearly $170,000 of my own cash. And I'm probably looking at what?
Honestly, probably still less than your principal. You've been investing for almost 15 years, and you basically have nothing to show for it but gray hair and a smaller bank account than if you just stuffed the cash under your mattress.
This is the exact moment where 99.9% of normal people quit. I would quit.
Rationally, yes, anyone would. But the simulation assumes you are an emotionless robot. You don't look at the balance, you just hit submit on the monthly transfer. And this brings us to the turnaround.
Okay, thank God. Take me to the light at the end of the tunnel. We jumped to year 20, December 26, 2014. The markets have recovered. Tech is starting to essentially take over the world. Where are we standing?
Okay, check your blood pressure.
I'm ready.
Cash is at $283,000. Slow and steady.
Boring, but safe.
TQQQ is now sitting at $959,000.
No way!
Near $1 million.
Stop. You're telling me I went from broke and miserable in 2008 to a near millionaire in 2014.
That is the raw power of leverage during a historic bull run. Remember all those cheap shares you bought during the dot-com crash?
Yeah.
And all those dirt cheap shares you scooped up during 2008 when everyone thought the world was ending?
Yeah.
Well, when the market finally turned around, you owned so many shares that the exponential growth was just explosive. TQQQ is now worth more than 3 times the value of the cash portfolio.
That is serious emotional whiplash. I don't know if a human brain could handle that, going from the outhouse to the penthouse that fast.
It's extreme. And look at QLD, the 2x leverage. It's right up there at $920,000. So even backing off the leverage a little bit got you to a very similar place with slightly less heart failure.
But the 3x leverage, that's where the math starts to get really weird. Humans think linearly, 1, 2, 3, 4. But compound interest, especially with leverage, is 2, 4, 8, 16.
Exactly. And we are about to enter the hockey stick part of the graph, the vertical climb.
Let's fast forward another 10 years. We are now at year 30, December 27th, 2024.
3 full decades of discipline. You are now likely in your 50s or 60s.
Cash is at $474,000.
Which, let's be honest, in 2024 dollars, that's not a retirement. That's a nice RV.
SPY, the standard S&P 500, is at about $2.2 million.
Now that is a fantastic retirement. $2.2 million is life-changing money. You won the game.
QQQ, the tech index, is at roughly $4.75 million.
Tech ate the world. It outperformed the broader market significantly, as we all know.
But now hold on to your hats. QLD, the 2x leverage,
$13.1 million.
$13 million.
It's unbelievable.
And TQQQ, the one that ruined our lives back in 2004.
$21.9 million.
That is astronomical. We're talking about TQQQ being worth over 46 times the value of the cash portfolio.
46 times. And remember, this is with the exact same monthly contribution. You didn't put in an extra dime. The only difference is the vehicle you chose.
And notice the gap between the 2x leverage and the 3x leverage. QLD is at 13 million, TQQQ is at nearly 22 million. That extra turn of leverage created a $9 million difference in the final stretch.
But again, think about the volatility you swallowed to get there. To get that extra $9 million, you had to endure 2004 and 2008.
It's a literal fortune. But our source didn't stop there, because the simulation runs through the end of 2025, and this is where the numbers just get stupid. We have data for year 31.
The final lap.
We're looking at December 22nd, 2025. Just 1 year after that 30-year milestone. What happened in that one single year?
Well, looking at the data, it was a very good year for tech. And because your pile of money was already so massive, the compounding gains were just out of this world.
How massive are we talking?
The TQQQ portfolio jumped from that $21.9 million to $25.35 million.
Let's just pause and unpack that. In one single year, from year 30 to year 31, the portfolio grew by over $3 million.
That 1 year of growth is more than the entire 31-year value of the SPY portfolio. You made an entire lifetime of normal investing profits in 12 months.
So let's look at the final scoreboard for the 31-year showdown. Read 'em and weep.
All right. Cash is at $506,000. Safe, but poor in real terms. SPY is at $2.57 million, the American dream outcome. QQQ is $5.44 million, the tech believer outcome. QLD is $15.4 million, the risk taker. And TQQQ is $25.35 million, the lunatic.
The lunatic wins. TQQQ ends up being 49 times the value of cash. QLD is 30 times cash. Even standard QQQ is almost 11 times cash.
It really makes the safe option look incredibly expensive. By playing it safe, you essentially paid a $24 million opportunity cost.
But we have to circle back to the reality of this. It's so easy to look at the chart now and say, oh, obviously I would have done that.
Right. Hindsight is 20/20. But foresight is blind. The source argues that consistency DCA and a long-term vision are the keys. But here is the nuance that we really need to drive home.
What's that?
The destruction was the fuel. The volatility that destroyed the portfolio in year 10 and year 14 was the exact reason for the $25 million in year 31. You cannot have one without the other.
Explain that again. How is losing money fuel?
Because of the dollar cost averaging. When TQQQ crashed by 90%, that monthly $1,000 contribution was scooping up shares by the barrel. If the price hadn't crashed, if the line had just gone up smoothly the whole time, you wouldn't have accumulated nearly as many shares. You needed the disaster to buy the inventory that made you rich later.
So the crash was actually a gift.
Mathematically.
Yes.
Psychologically, it felt like a curse. But mathematically, for a net buyer, a crash is a giant sale.
That is such a hard thing to internalize. We are wired to want our account balance to go up every single month. Green is good, red is bad.
Precisely. But if you were in the accumulation phase, red is actually opportunity. The problem is, with a 3x leveraged fund, the sale looks like a bankruptcy. It looks like the end of the financial world.
And let's not forget the endgame volatility. We're sitting here high-fiving over $25 million. But what does a bad day look like when you have $25 million in a 3x leveraged fund?
Oh, it's terrifying. A normal 2% market drop, which happens all the time, means a 6% drop for you. On $25 million, that is a $1.5 million loss in a single day.
You could lose a Ferrari before lunch.
You could lose a nice house before your morning coffee.
Yeah.
You'd need a stomach of solid steel, or you'd need to just completely ignore your accounts. Automation is probably the only way a normal human could ever execute this.
So what does this all mean for you listening at home? We've got these massive numbers, but what is the actual takeaway? Is this advice?
Definitely not advice. It's a study in extremes. But I think there are two main takeaways. First, the cost of safety is enormous over long time frames. Staying in cash guarantees you won't lose nominal money, but it almost guarantees you will miss out on true wealth creation.
49 times the value. That's the cost of safety.
Second, leverage is a power tool. You can build a house in half the time, or you can cut your arm off. The difference is discipline and time horizon. If you need the money in 5 years, TQQQ is gambling. It's roulette. If you have 30 years and you can stick to the plan through the bloodbaths of 2000 and 2008, the historical data suggests it's a wealth-generating machine.
But you have to survive the lost decade and the financial crisis.
You have to survive the valley of despair to get to the mountain of gold.
It's such a fascinating look at how math and psychology collide. The numbers say do it, but your brain screams stop.
And that's the eternal struggle of investing. The spreadsheet is completely rational. You are not.
Well, this has been a wild ride through 31 years of financial history. It definitely makes you look at that monthly savings transfer a little differently.
It certainly does. It puts the concept of long-term into a very sharp, very painful perspective.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. We talked about the math and we talked about the psychology, but I want you to really sit with that year 10 scenario.
The $70,000.
Yeah. Could you actually do it? Could you sit tight for 10 years, watching your hard-earned money shrink to half of what it would be in a boring savings account while your friends in the S&P 500 are bragging about their gains? Could you do that just on the promise, not the guarantee, the promise that 20 years later it might be worth 49 times more?
That is the $25 million question.
But take it one step further. What if that 90% crash didn't happen in year 10 when you were accumulating? What if it happens in year 31, the day before you plan to sell and retire? Suddenly, your $25 million is $2.5 million, and there's no time left to wait for the bounce.
That's the real terror of leverage right there. Timing is suddenly everything.
Think about your own time horizon. Think about your own stomach for risk. And whatever you decide, thanks for diving deep with us today.
Happy investing.
We'll catch you on the next one.